Welcome back to another interview with Local Where To. I'm Lorraine, and today I'm delighted to be joined by Joanne Hession. Joanne is a passionate entrepreneur and visionary leader who has been a driving force in the Irish business landscape for over 25 years. As the founder of the Entrepreneurs Academy, she has mentored and trained thousands of people. She is also the force behind Lift Ireland, a groundbreaking social enterprise that is raising the standard of leadership across schools, communities, and businesses. Today, we'll explore the two businesses she has built and learn how a shared purpose can create real and lasting change. Thank you, Joanne, for joining us today.
Oh, great to be here, Lorraine. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're very welcome. What you're doing is absolutely amazing. And I think the more people that know about it, the better. So I'm just going to start from the top and see if we can get a brief overview of who Joanne Hession, it's Hession, isn't it? I'm pronouncing it right.
Hession.
Sorry. Get a brief overview of where you come from, how the Entrepreneurs Academy, first of all, was started, and then how you verged into Lift Ireland.
Yeah, so I suppose first, I always loved business. I was that kid in school that was making jewellery and selling it for half nothing, 10pence. All those years ago. I mean, it was awful stuff when I think about it. But anyway, I was always at it. And even when I went on to college, I did business in college. I went to University College Dublin, did business there, and went on and did my master's there and set up a makeshift cleaning company because I didn't want to work in the bars or all those unsocial hours that were out there. I wanted to do my own hours. And so I remember there was a housing estate that had these beautiful new houses. And I looked in the windows to find which ones had no kids and no dogs because they wouldn't be as messy. And I put flyers into those and I set up my cleaning company, borrowed my mother's Hoover and her car and got two friends, paid them a tenner each, and off we went. It was the time of the yuppies. It was the early 90s. So Yuppie had just come out, which was young and upcoming professionals. So they weren't in the house, which was fabulous. So we'd turn up the music and off we'd go with the Hoovers. We great fun. So I loved business. I absolutely loved business. It just was in my DNA. I loved it, everything about it. My dad was a businessman, not an entrepreneur. He worked for 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗶𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀. So I was always really interested in how they were doing things and what they were doing and what was happening in the US with them and Ireland and the UK. And I was always interested in that. So I loved business. And then after college, I actually went into EY to be an accountant. Not that I really wanted to be an accountant. My father was an accountant, so I was well aware of that profession. But it was more that there weren't any jobs. It was the early 90s and there were no jobs at all. And I applied and got offered and thought I better not turn this down. So I went into EY, but after a year or so, a couple of things happened that made me do a U-turn and go, actually, this is not for me. And most importantly, a friend of mine passed away at the time. I was 22 and very suddenly passed away. And it made me think, oh my goodness, I might be gone this time next year. So am I doing what I really want to do? And accountancy, I love accounting, I love numbers, but it wasn't for me. So I did a U-turn out of there, went back to work for the business school in UCD, had a great time because I was being paid. All the students were just about a year or two younger than me. So I had a great time at that. And then the economy really started to heat up in the mid-90s here. And so everybody was talking about money and everything to do with business. And I was dealing with business students all the time was about money. And I started to really question this for myself and started to ask, golly, is that all this is about? Is just about making money? Maybe this isn't for me. Maybe business isn't for me. And again, did another bit of a U-turn and decided to apply to the aid agencies, the international aid agencies, to travel abroad, and thought, well, you know what, maybe that's where I should really be putting my focus. So I left the leafy suburbs of Dublin and landed on the Rwandan border after the genocide. Worked for Concern Worldwide, amazing organisation. Worked there for just over a year in that emergency field. So many stories I could tell you out of that and since then, but I think for me, that really taught me what an amazing island we have here and how I love it. I just love it. I love it. Fabulous people. I just love it. So that was the first thing. And secondly, how much I had taken for granted. I'd gone to a non-fee paying school. We didn't have college fees, I don't think, at the time. My master's had been funded by the EU because they were all funded at that time through the EU. I'd completely taken all of that for granted. And here, on the Rwandan border, there were people coming across with no families, lost everybody, and just getting 4 poles and a plastic sheet to set up home, and really made me think an awful lot. So my choice then, my crossroads then was, do I stay there in that international field or do I come back? And I felt really my heart was here in Ireland. And I've always felt my heart is in Ireland. And also I felt that really I'm made for business. So I came back to Ireland, worked for a small company for, I think, just over a year, and really to learn how do small businesses work, and then set up my own. So I set up my own when I was 27, which is now the Entrepreneurs Academy. And it's a business training company to help people get started and to stay in business. And that company still exists today.
That's amazing. That's actually still going.
It's amazing. It's great. Oh, look, it's got amazing people in it. So I started up that business. I set up another business as well, a consultancy company called QED. It actually does consulting all over the world, and now is run by amazing woman Joanne Powell. The Entrepreneurs Academy is now run by Lorraine Bowen and the team there of Suzanne, Carol and Noel Davidson. They are amazing human beings and amazing people, business people. But so I worked in those, ran them for 20 years. And then I suppose it had always been bugging me, the area of leadership. I started to study my own leadership. Really, Lorraine, if I'm very honest, which I hope I always am, I thought I was a good leader. I think I probably was that natural. No, it's not that I was a natural leader. I was probably naturally the loudest in my family. I was the third child. I was definitely naturally the loudest. In school, I wasn't afraid to speak up, and I took on leadership roles very willingly and very easily. And I think when I went into work for myself, I thought this was just a natural thing, that I was a leader. And about 10 years into business, I remember taking 2 days. I had the 2 businesses. I had 3 kids under the age of 4. And I was either working, changing nappies, or pregnant most of my 30s. And I was just exhausted. And I had a big enough team at the time. And so I took 2 days and I thought, I'm just going to spend these 2 days working out, why am I doing this? And when I sat back and looked at it, I realized really that I read 9 books, actually, not over the 2 days, but over a couple of weeks. I read 9 books. It's the fantastic and cheapest way to learn is through brilliant books. I read amazing books. And I realized a couple of things. I realized, one, that when I'd look at my team and I'd sort of be thinking to myself, oh God, if he could just work a bit harder, that would be great. Or, oh, if they just got it. It wasn't that at all. It was that I wasn't a good enough leader. And that kind of hit me a bit like a thunderbolt, that I needed to work on myself more. I had, really since my 20s, I hadn't picked up a book to learn. I sort of felt I'd finished college and hadn't done any more learning, and I really needed to do a lot more. So that was the first thing. And then the second thing that I really thought about around that time is, what are my values? What are important to me? And are these businesses going to help me achieve in life what is important to me? And I really came down to that the value of learning is extremely important to me. If I thought I could go another day but couldn't learn anymore, that's not really worth it. And the second piece that's really important to me, or value, is potential and achieving potential. I really want to get to the end of my days and feel like I smashed it, that I used every bit of my potential that I possibly could. I'd love to think that, I just kind of wore it out and did. And I don't think you ever can do that, but I want to die trying, for sure. So I continued on with those businesses because they were both in education, and helping people to fulfill their potential is part of education. It's all part of learning too. So I knew I was in the right businesses. But then a couple of years later, in my mid-40s, I really started to study leadership a lot more. I started traveling to the States to study leadership and invest in myself, which is, oh my goodness, like, it's the greatest gift you can give yourself. And I really started to think about, how are we leading ourselves, and how all the problems in the world are caused by how we behave and how we act, which is really how we're leading. We tend to think of leadership as a position or a title, but that's not really what it is. Leadership is or self-leadership is how I am behaving and how I'm acting. If I shout at my kitchen table, I'm going to cause problems. If I'm measured and if I'm calm and if I've integrity and if I show respect, all great leadership characteristics, things will go better around me and things will be better for the people around me, and I will make better decisions, and so everything will get better. And so that's why in my mid-40s, I was doing some leadership work. I'd been invited by a guy called Dr. John Maxwell to Paraguay with about 45 other people to do some leadership work in Paraguay. And I saw them using this 5-step process, which was so easy, so simple to stop and reflect on how am I leading and get a little bit better. It just takes about 45 minutes. And when I saw it, I thought, oh my goodness, if we could get our whole country to do that, we could lift the whole country just by people stopping and reflecting and taking one action step to course. And that would have a huge impact across the whole country. So really a bit like pulling a plaster off or Band-Aid off a wound. I moved very quickly, like as in by the time I had traveled the 24 hours back from Paraguay, I had mapped out exactly how I was going to do this, started to do it, put an advisory board together, left my 2 businesses in the hands of the teams that were there, and started Lift Ireland. That's how it started.
Oh my Lord. I think where I was getting mixed up with the term leadership, it's actually not leading other people, it's actually leading yourself.
It's leading yourself that in turn leads other people. We tend to mix up leadership and management. It's not management. Managing is getting the right people in the right place to do the right thing at the right time. And the easiest way to think about management is if you're managing a soccer team or some kind of sports team, because you've got the forwards at the front, the defenders at the back, right people in the right place doing the right thing at the right time. Leading is something completely different. Leadership is about how big you are on the inside, because you could be an amazing manager of a team, and then I could ask you to create a whole load of change in that team and to go in a completely different direction. And if you start to try and create that change, if you're not leading well, nobody really wants to go with you. A leader is somebody that people want to follow. So self-leadership is the important bit. That's really the important bit. It's how I work on myself really results in whether or not people want to follow me.
Yeah, it's more or less showing up.
Showing up. If I've got people around me and I lack integrity, or they feel I'm saying one thing and doing another, do they really want to follow me? Not sure.
Yeah, it totally changes it whenever you say that. We'll just carry on with the Lift Ireland. So whenever I was looking at your site, it mentions the 8-week program, and you had touched there on Dr. John Maxwell's 5-step process. What is the program, and like what does it do and accomplish and all that?
Yeah, and actually it's not John's 5-step process at all. He had got it off another organization, so I went to them to get it. Although I have to say, John is a great friend of mine and he's a fantastic guy. But when we say it's an 8-week program, what's really important for your listeners to realize is that it's only 40 or 45 minutes a week. So it's less than one full day in total. It's less than 8 hours, but it happens over weekly intervals. So it's like going to the gym for your self-leadership. So you go once a week, and it's with a group of 5 people. One of those people will have been trained by us. And the group of 5 people go through a structured, self-reflective process where they read an article, they pick out something that resonates with them, and then they self-evaluate how well they've been living that leadership topic over the last 24 to 48 hours.
Okay, I think I'm with you. Now you're taking this into schools.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how would that work in schools? So the school would also read the same article, or is there different articles for different age groups?
So it's more or less the exact same, except the context changes a little bit. So where for adults or working adults like you and me, it might refer to colleagues and customers and things like that. For school age, it will refer to friends. So it changes in that way. But the substance of the article more or less stays the same. The topics are chosen by the people of Ireland. We did independent research, or we paid for independent research to be done to find out if we're going to get better at leading, what areas do we need to get better at, so that we weren't dictating to people, here's what you need to get better at, because that would have been really arrogant of us to do that. The results that came back were, if we're going to lead better here, or if you're going to be a leader that I want to follow more, well, we need more listening and we need more positive attitude. The third area was we need more respect. We need more accountability. And that's people holding themselves accountable, as well as holding other people accountable without annihilating them, but holding them accountable in a respectful way. We need more determination, more competence, more empathy and understanding, and more honesty and integrity. So they were the initial top eight areas that we took. We've done that research a couple of times now, and we have expanded out the topics to include resilience, critical thinking, sustainability, embracing difference, fairness, innovation and adaptability, and a couple more as well. So when this happens in a school, we first train the teachers. So it could be just one teacher in a school, it could be many, as they like. The teachers don't actually teach Lift in the school. They simply just are supervisors. So it takes us a half day to train teachers. We had about 20 or 30 teachers last week come on training with us. They do it online in their half day, and then they bring it back to the school, and we give them all the materials and we give them videos to show. So the first 3 classroom sessions are training the students in how to facilitate the roundtable groups. Currently, we do it in most of the schools. So we have 411 schools doing it currently. And they do it, mostly they do it with their 16-year-olds in school. And then when the 16-year-olds have done all the roundtables with each other, they then take it to the 12 and 13-year-olds. So it's peer showing peer how to lead well. Now, an important part, a really important part of Lift is that there's no commenting on what anybody else says in the roundtable group. There's no discussion. Each person just gets to reflect on the leadership value and what it means to them and how they could get a little bit better. And everybody else gets that opportunity. So if you're a 12-year-old sitting in one of those groups, you get to hear how a 16-year-old is reflecting on whether or not they've really been listening in the last 24 to 48 hours. You don't get to comment on what they say, and they don't get to comment on you when it's your turn either. You just get that safe space to stop and think about how could I get a little bit better at this. But it's in a structured way, and it's in a very safe way. So the first week they do listening, and then the second week they come back and they do positive attitude, and then they do respect the third week.
I suppose whenever you think of it, if you're a 12-year-old and you're speaking in front of a 16-year-old, you're always conscious what they might say back. So having the no speaking policy as such, it alleviates all that stress.
It does. Even if you think about it, if you go out into your own world today, and most of the time we're speaking and we're actually performing because we are expecting people to respond in some way, or we are performing in some way to get people to respond in a certain way. In Lift roundtables, that's completely different. You get this safe space just to really reflect on, hang on, how good have I been? How much integrity have I had in the last 24 to 48 hours? When I go through all of the different interactions that I had, like, I'll give you an example. So I say to myself and other people that I exercise. Have I had real integrity? I definitely did not get up this morning and get out for that walk that I usually would get up for. So it's really just looking for creases and not to be a downer on yourself or anything like that. If I give myself and rate myself a 1 out of 10 because I haven't been listening in the last 24 to 48 hours, it doesn't make me a bad person. It just means I wasn't really listening. The round table gives me a chance to go, okay, the next person that I meet, I'm going to focus on listening for 5. And that's all. So our world is so busy and so fast, and we are distracted so much that we don't get this time to stop and course correct it all. We just keep bundling, sort of entrundling
Yeah.
through life. And that's not a good thing. So what Lift is doing is just giving a 45-minute once a week, stop, breathe, reflect. How am I doing? Great, go on. No matter what, there's no judgment. If you're great, fantastic. If you feel you've got a crease or two, as I always do, that's great too. Go for it, and that's how it works.
Okay, so trying to get this into my head and talk it through. So you're sitting with, how many typically is in a round table?
5 or 6.
Right, 5 or 6 people around you in a round table. It could be students, your colleagues, so on and so forth. And you read a piece of text and then you reflect. Is there anything else that goes on within that 45 minutes, or is that?
Yes. So you read a piece of text, you reflect on it, then each person picks out one piece of the text that resonated with them in some way. They like it, they don't like it, whatever they pick out is totally their own. And then the person that has been trained by us for the half day takes them through a 4-step evaluation of themselves. So they are guided to rate themselves from 1 to 10 on the last 24 to 48 hours. When you read the text and all the things that are in it, were you doing all those steps? So for example, in the listening article, there's a piece in the listening article that says, hang on now, and I have it here in front of me, that says, avoid the temptation. Good listeners avoid the temptation to think about what they're going to say next. Good listeners stop what they're doing and fully engage. Again, in this world that we're in today, stopping and fully engaging is not easy to do, especially with mobile phones and everything else around. So often when people are stopping and reflecting on, hang on, how have I been in the last 24 to 48 hours? I might say that during this podcast, yes, I'm stopping and engaging and so on. But earlier this morning when I was having breakfast with my 23-year-old, is that what I was doing, or was I pretending to pay attention and not paying attention, or whatever the situation might be? And really, again, you're not looking for things to beat yourself up over. You're just looking to see, where could I get a tiny bit better at this? And where could I strengthen my listening muscle a tiny bit? And at the end of the evaluation and action, each person takes a specific action step. That is something very easy. So I might take that, okay, when my husband comes home this evening, I'm going to focus on just listening to him for 5 minutes. That's total, you didn't even know this, but that's what I'm going to do. Or it could be that when I head into my next meeting, I'm going to focus on asking questions to make sure that I fully understand what the other person is saying or what they're not saying. And that's going to be my specific action step. I'm just going to focus on asking questions. And so these are ways for us to build our muscle to get better at this. And that's what Lift does. It's a muscle building, an internal character. What did I hear somebody the other day say to me? It's like a gym for your character. And that's what it is. So if you continuously do them week after week after week, all the culmination of these small, tiny actions result in behavior change and you strengthening your muscle. You become more aware, because that's always the start of any behavior change, is increasing our self-awareness. And then you take small, tiny actions to get that behavior change happening.
I think it was the action. I think that's critical too, isn't it? It's making that space, reflecting, not beating yourself up, because there's no point. Then taking action.
That's it. And when you come back to the roundtable then the following week, your person who has trained with us will start the roundtable and will say, okay, we're going to go over the action step that we had for last week, how it went for us, and how we would rate ourselves this week. I'm going into a roundtable this afternoon. I've got one with a company that I'm going in to do for them. And last week we did positive attitude, and I had got, my action step was in my notebook. I knew I had a list of 8 to 10 big items that were sort of hanging in my head a bit, whether they were work things, family things, and so on. And my action step from last week was to go down through that list and just decide on one thing to move me forward in each of those. And which I did do. And it really helped me to just think more positively about those 8 to 10 things that were hanging heavy in my head as big things I needed to somehow move forward, but wasn't sure exactly how to. So just by filling in a tiny little thing that I had to do in each of them made me feel better.
You mentioned that this is an 8-week program, but judging by what you're saying, schools can continue on this here indefinitely.
Yes, schools can and people can. I'm doing roundtables now for nearly 8 years. We started Lift 7 years ago. 140,000 people have done over 1 million roundtables now.
Wow.
Yes, it is absolutely huge. And really what I want to happen is that we get our 8, 9 and 10-year-olds doing them, which we're just starting at the moment. We've done a pilot with that age group. Then you go in to secondary school or you're 12 and you do it again. Then you might do it again when you're 14 or 16. You become one of the facilitators then while you're in school. And then you go on to college or wherever you go on to afterwards and you do it again. And then you go into the workplace and you do it again. And by doing it like that, our whole island will become full of better leaders. And we'll get better decisions. And it's an upstream activity as well. There are so many activities for us that are downstream when we hit problems and we hit crisis situations. This is an upstream activity to build our self-leadership muscle. It is fantastic. And we have loads of data to show how it works. We have a PhD. One of my team is now doing a PhD on Lift. It's an employer-based PhD. Now, this is one of my team is my brother, as well as one of my older brothers, who initially, David's a solicitor. He said, behaviour change is never going to happen. He has completely changed since joining Lift, did a master's in psychology in his spare time and is now doing a PhD on Lift. We also got independent research done by the University of Galway on Lift. And we can see that we know that it works. We know that it does. We know that behaviour change happens. And now we're looking into, is it more effective with certain groups? That's part of what we're looking at in this PhD now.
If schools want to get on board, Joanne, and you mentioned the island of Ireland, so I know it's in the south of Ireland, to get it into the north of Ireland, what would they have to do? And I know schools are all about the budget. How do we afford this? What's that plan look like?
We're a social enterprise, so we charge organisations that have budget to do it. Those that don't, we do our best to extend it to them. So far, we're thrilled to say that we've been able to give all schools Lift and cover it with the funds that we've received. We're really stretched at the moment. So I know when we go into the younger age cohort, we're going to start to ask schools to fundraise a certain amount, do a fundraiser with the kids, and then take Lift in that way. What I'm saying is just contact us. It's info@liftireland.ie. That's info@liftireland.ie. If you'd like your school to be involved, we would love schools in the north. We'd absolutely love it. I had no connections in any school at all. I had all business connections, and I went to my local school. We started with them. There's a video about them. If you just Google Lift 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗵𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗀, CONFEY, Lift 𝗕𝗂𝘀𝗵𝗵𝗲𝗀𝗀, you'll find a video on YouTube with the students and the principal talking about it there. And that one school started with us end of 2018. They might have started 2019. We just launched in 2018. The next year, it had spread and 26 schools asked us, could we start? That's only, 5 years ago, and now we've 411 schools. And like that, we trained another 20 or so teachers last week. So we are thrilled with the response from schools, and schools in the north. Please do come and use Lift. We would love you to use Lift. And we can tell you the different ways that different schools have done it. Some schools have integrated it into their subjects. I know in the south here, TY is the year that a lot of them have put it into. But then there are other schools like Loreto Balbriggan, and they did it. They started off doing it with the 5th years, doing it during their lunchtimes. And then The fifth years did it with the second years, and the students wanted to do it. So I think it might have been integrated into the timetable there now. There's a phenomenal teacher there, Aisling Lennon, that leads that out. But again, if you wanted, we could put you in touch with a teacher to learn a little bit more about it. We'll be able to fill you in on how it has worked in different schools and make sure that it works and that it can work for you as well. But funding wise, look, I'd give it all away for free. I think it's such a magic little process. I totally would. But I've got to find a way. We all work and we're keeping our costs as low as we possibly can. There only are six of us and 2 part-times. We'll stretch as far as we possibly can. But at this stage, we really need to bring in funding.
You were talking Ireland, so assuming all the training's online and everybody can be trained online, so this can actually go global. We're not just targeting Ireland.
Great question. It is, we do all the training online. We do it in person as well in some cases. What we're looking to do is to use Ireland as a case study that we can then share with the rest of the world. So I don't really feel that it's my business or our business to necessarily do it for other countries, but I do feel it's our business to share it and to spread the word. And I think this amazing country deserves to get the recognition as having the maturity to look back at itself and say, do you know what, we were good, but we knew we could get better. So we did something across our schools, our companies, our nonprofits, our prisons, our everything. Everybody is welcome to get involved. It's the most inclusive initiative that the country has ever seen, to my knowledge. And I would love our neighbours in the UK, I would love to share it with them. And in fact, some of the companies that do Lift, they do it outside of Ireland, and we call it Leading International Futures together with them because they have non-Irish subsidiaries. And I think it's really important that Ireland makes sure that it shares this. This is a very good news story, and Ireland, not me, and I need to make sure that I'm very clear about that. I have no desire myself to get recognised for it, but I would love the country to get recognised. We have a lot of Irish diaspora around the world, and there's no reason why they couldn't, pull it in, and we will absolutely share. I will share everything as much as I possibly can so that somebody else can get it started in wherever they want to get it started. Florida is 6 times the population of Ireland. If Ireland can do it, all you have to do is just do 6 times that. Then you've got Florida covered. You just take it bit by bit like that. We are getting already some interest from Irish diaspora in the US, and I hope to get more because they may be able to help us to fund it here, which would be I'd be very grateful for. It's not in my personal vision to run it all over the world. Ireland is where I'm interested.
Yeah, focused. So we mentioned the school and the structure of how the older ones started and then drip feed it down to the younger ones. What about in corporate and business? So do those sessions look similar, or how do they work?
Yeah, they're actually extremely similar. It's the same. Again, it's 8 sessions. In some organizations, they might do 10. So if you take Bank of Ireland, they're doing 5 before Christmas, 5 after Christmas. They're doing it about 5 or 6 years now. They've done thousands of roundtables there, as have the other banks. What happens there is we partner with that organization. We train over a half day. We train people in how to run the roundtables. We give them all the materials. We basically coach them in how to roll it out, and we're there to run alongside them. Yeah, and that's how it runs. It's very, very easy, very straightforward. I have a meeting today with the housing agency. They've been doing it down here. We have Riverdance doing it as well. They took it on their US tour with them. We have Pfizer, we have the ESB, so lots of different organizations are doing it, and they all do it within their organizations because they know that this is a great reflective tool to enhance their cultures because people are stopping and thinking about their behavior. So it's really good in that way. And we can also take, if an organization has particular values and behaviors that are important for them to see in their organization, that they might have their values hanging on the walls, for example, we can take them and we can make them into round table materials for them so that they can use this process as an embedding process. And this is the best embedding process for behavior and values that I have ever seen. As I said at the start, I'm in learning and education, training and education all my life. I left my job to get this to organizations and to people because it is such a good tool.
I think it's also important that so many people now are working from home, so we don't have that interconnection. So I'm assuming a roundtable can be done online. There's no difference between doing it online or doing it in person.
That's correct. I do roundtables every Saturday morning with a group, and we started doing them during COVID. We actually put roundtables online during COVID for anybody that wants to hop on, and 1,500 people hopped onto roundtables. I continued doing my Saturday morning one since then, so I've been doing it for years. There's a core group that comes on every Saturday, but some of them I've never met in person. But I feel I know them pretty well at this stage.
So how does that work? I know on your website you have join a roundtable. So is that there just a group of people jump on and then you're broken out into various rooms?
That's it. Yeah, we have those on in case somebody just wants to try a round table. Now, what you have to be mindful of is that you might be joining halfway through a cycle. So you won't necessarily be starting at the first one, but we just leave those on for people to, there's just about 3 or 4 of them, I think, a week now that we run in case somebody wants to try to get on one. But really the best thing to do is to get in touch with us. My email is Joanne, Joanne. Just get in touch with us. And if you'd like to know more, we'll run a roundtable with your team. We'll run a roundtable with you and a group of colleagues, a group of friends, sports clubs, whatever, wherever you would like to do Lift. And we'll show you how it works. And then you can make the decision for yourselves if you think that's something that you'd like to join and be part of. We'd love to have you involved. And if you think that in any way that there is a barrier to you joining for whatever reason, please do get in touch with us, because we just find a way to say yes and work with us so that we can get over that barrier together and find a way to do it. We were contacted by a school that had a number of Ukrainian students coming in, and they said, we've these new students coming in, this was a couple of years ago, and they said, we'd love to do positive attitude, resilience, respect, with all the students together. So we translated them into Ukrainian. We found somebody who could translate them for us. We have never said no yet. It's not the ethos of who we are or what we're about. We really want to get this to as many people as we possibly can. So if you do feel there's a barrier in any way, we'll do our best, work with us, and we'll find a way to get it to work for you.
That's a brilliant concept for even schools. There's so many different cultures coming into schools now, and it's also a great way to learn about how that culture is actually thinking as well, because everybody sees something in a different way.
Yeah, it's one of the things about a roundtable is I don't think I'm alone with this, but when I meet people, there tends to be sort of an instant judgment there, good and bad. And I'm not saying that's a good thing about myself, but it just tends to sort of roll through my head. When I go on a round table with people, I never come off without thinking, oh my God, what a gorgeous human they are. Because the round table gives you a chance to hear the other person's thoughts. So you get to hear somebody's intentions. Now, I might know this person very well and see their actions and be judging their actions. But in a round table, I get to hear their intentions. And that's a very precious thing. And it also... It just shows you the goodness in humans. I mean, we all have good intentions. It's just that sometimes our actions don't quite level up to our intentions. And Lift is one of those processes that helps us to just course correct a little bit. And we're human, that's just the nature of it.
I think I know the answer to the last question, but where do you see Lift in 5 to 10 years?
Listen, we are going to cover this country in a blanket of this. We need to. I feel more than ever when we started up, I remember standing in the Shelburne Hotel with 30 CEOs and telling them this is what I was going to do, and putting up my hand and saying, look, I know I could get better at leading myself, anyone with me. And most of the room put up their hands. I felt I was putting my neck on a block that day. There's no doubt about it. We've given ourselves a 10-year goal to get 10% doing this and get it to as many people as we possibly can. So I feel not even in the next 5 years, but in the next 3 years that we need to cover the country. And all those years ago, it was 2017 when I stood up in the Shelburne and 2018 when we launched. And all those years ago, some people would say to me, sure, we're not that bad, sure, we're grand. Sure, aren't we grand here? Sure, Joanne, we're not that bad. And then I'd look at the news and I'd look at the headlines and I'd go, do you know what? We could be better. Yeah, I could be better, and I definitely want to leave this earth feeling I did everything I could, especially after seeing what I've seen, in Rwanda and other places, I just go, do you know what? Look, I'm going to do the best I can to make it a bit better. At that time when we were starting, there didn't seem like there was so much of an urgency for it. Now I feel there's an urgency. I really do. I mean, look at the world we're in at the moment. And if you go back to what I'm always saying and what I said at the beginning is that it's really very simple. All the problems around us, whether they're in our homes or in our communities or in our schools or our workplaces or our countries, are caused by human behavior. And this is a way for us to equip and empower each other with a greater understanding of what respect is and what integrity is. And I don't have to like what you say, and I don't have to agree with what you say, but that doesn't mean that I hate you. Real respect is where I understand that you are human with value, and I don't have to agree with you, and that's okay. But I do have to hold you with value because you're a human being. And we need that now more than ever. We really do. And we need our young people to understand this language. And where do they get taught this? Because an awful lot are getting taught on their mobile phones. I feel it's urgent now. It's not a luxury. It's an absolute necessity. And we need to get in there. And I am hoping to get in and talk to government departments about, look, Lift is not an expensive thing to run. It's not an expensive thing to roll out. I'm not interested in building big empires. I know how to start businesses. I know how to scale businesses. And this does not need an organization with massive scale. It just needs funding to run it and grow it. And really, I need government departments to just say, okay, great, we'll take that and we'll run with it. It'll be the quickest win they'll ever get. I think it's extremely important. So I see that in 5 years, it will be well embedded. It certainly won't need me then, Lorraine, for sure. I don't even know in 3 years if it will need me. I do feel that my job is to do myself out of a job here and just get it embedded into schools and organizations. And then there are other big issues that need to be tackled in this country that I will start to set my sights on after that. The kind of thing that's going through my head is we've so much suicide. Somehow, I think that's probably where I will start looking at next. See, what can I do and how can I help there? We will have a whole nation of super lifters at that stage, that are looking to do good things, and we can link arms virtually and see, look, what can we do to help here?
That's absolutely amazing, your vision, first of all, and then what you're actually doing for Ireland. Oh, incredible. And I also encourage anybody that's listening is to reach out to their local schools and get them on board with this as soon as possible, because it's such a necessity in equipping our young ones.
We'd love to have them. We really would. We're going to run a summit in February. We're going to have 2,500 people we're going to train to become Lift facilitators in one day. At that, we will have 500 young people of the 2,500. Now, we'll probably take those from we have flag schools, that's schools that have been doing Lift for a while and then have done Lift, but have done more with Lift, like bringing it outside their school walls to their communities and so on. So we will probably take students from those schools the first time we do it. But oh my goodness, we'd love to have teachers or parents or team days, colleagues, work. If you want to bring 100 of your people, get in touch with me. Get 100 people trained as Lift facilitators. They'll immediately take Lift to 500 people. And then they'll take it to another 500 people over the year. Because if they take 2 groups of 5, that 100 people will take it on to 1,000 people. So 2,500 people are going to take it on to 25,000 people. So that's what we're going to do early next year. And we are looking for sponsors for that too, Lorraine.
Anybody that's looking to sponsor that summit, is it online or is it in person?
No, that's going to be in person in the RDS on the 12th of February, 2026.
Okay. For anybody listening, I'll also have all links to everything that you have mentioned, all your email addresses in your local Where2 business profile, so anybody can get in contact with you night or day. And 1, regarding sponsorship, 2, regarding the corporate program, and 3, get us into schools.
Great. Thank you so much. Lovely to chat to you. Although I did all the chatting, so I'll have to have another session where I get to hear all about you, Lorraine.